A former IRS agent just exposed the $10,000 rule the IRS hopes you never fully understand. Not the part they publish, the part underneath it, the part that has taken clean, legal money from people who thought they were being careful. Stay with me, because what I'm about to explain is the difference between a routine bank deposit and a federal investigation that starts before you leave the parking lot. Most people have heard of the $10,000 rule. They know that depositing more than $10,000 in cash triggers some kind of report. What they do not know, what the former IRS agent I sat with made clear in the first 5 minutes of our conversation, is that knowing half of this rule is more dangerous than knowing none of it, because the half they know is exactly what the system was built to catch. He said it plainly. He said, the people who walk in with $11,000 and deposit it in full are not the ones we spent time on. The people who walk in with $11,000 and deposit $9,800 because they heard 10,000 causes problems, those are the people who handed us a federal case. Here is what the rule actually is. Under the Bank Secrecy Act of 1970, any cash transaction exceeding $10,000 requires your bank to file a currency transaction report, a CTR, with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, which sits inside the US Treasury. The report goes out automatically. You do not sign it. You are not notified. It simply happens. That report by itself is not an investigation. It is not a flag. It is not a problem. The former agent was emphatic about this. A CTR is paperwork. The government files hundreds of thousands of them. Most go nowhere. The problem has a name. It is called structuring, and it lives under 31 US Code Section 5324. Structuring is the act of breaking up transactions specifically to avoid crossing the $10,000 reporting threshold, and under that statute, structuring is a federal felony, regardless of whether every single dollar you are depositing is completely clean, legally earned, legally inherited, legally gifted. The source does not matter. If the intent is to stay below the threshold, the act itself is the crime. The maximum penalty is 5 years in federal prison and fines up to $250,000. If the structured amount exceeds $100,000 in a 12-month period, those penalties double. And then there is civil forfeiture. The former agent described this as the part that keeps him up at night. Under 31 US Code Section 5317, the government can seize the funds involved in suspected structuring before any criminal charge has been filed, before you have been accused of anything, before you have had the chance to explain. The burden then shifts. You have to prove the money was not connected to illegal activity to get it back. The legal costs alone can consume a significant portion of what was taken. There are documented cases where people were cleared and never made whole. He told me about the instinct problem. When ordinary people first learn that $10,000 triggers a federal report, the natural reaction is to deposit $9,000. It feels like common sense. It feels like the safe choice. And that instinct, that specific, reasonable-sounding decision, is the precise behavior the entire compliance architecture was built to identify. The old systems ran on fixed rules. If you stayed under the number, the rule did not trigger. Banks and regulators noticed the pattern, and those systems no longer exist at major financial institutions. What replaced them runs on machine learning. It analyzes your complete transaction history and compares your behavior against models built from billions of data points across the financial sector. The question the new system asks is not whether you broke a rule. It is whether your behavior looks like you. A deposit of $9,000 from someone who has never deposited more than $2,000 in a single transaction does not need to cross a threshold to get flagged. It gets flagged because it does not match your baseline. The former agent walked me through what happens next. The bank's compliance software files a suspicious activity report, ASAR. And here is the detail that changes everything. Under federal law, it is a crime for a bank employee to tell you that ASAR has been filed on your account. The teller cannot say a word. Your branch manager cannot warn you. The person who asked you 3 questions about a large withdrawal cannot legally tell you what happens after you walk out. You leave the bank with no idea. The report enters a federal database shared across the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Department of Homeland Security, and hundreds of other agencies. It stays there for 5 years. Every transaction you make during those 5 years gets cross-referenced against the original flag. What the former agent wanted people to understand, and what he said most people only learn after it is too late, is that the currency transaction report is not the threat. The report is your protection. When you deposit the full amount in a single transparent transaction, the bank documents the complete picture. There is no pattern to analyze. There is no deviation from a baseline. The CTR is filed, the story is complete, and the file closes. The people who split the deposit to avoid the report are the ones who open the investigation that a single complete deposit would have prevented entirely. The practical protection is straightforward. Deposit the full amount. Bring documentation. If you sold a vehicle, bring the bill of sale, both names, the date, the amount, signatures. If you received a gift, have the giver put a brief letter in writing confirming there is no expectation of repayment. If it is an inheritance distribution, bring the estate documentation. The former agent said he reviewed cases where a single piece of paper would have closed the file in 20 minutes. Documentation does not just protect you legally, it removes the question that triggers the flag in the first place. No question, no suspicious activity report. No report, no database entry. No database entry, no 5 years of cross-reference scrutiny on every transaction you make. And if you ever receive correspondence from the IRS, FinCEN, or the Department of Justice about banking activity, stop. Do not answer questions on the spot. Do not try to explain the full history of where the money came from. 5 words: I would like an attorney. The former agent said he watched people talk themselves into investigations they never would have faced if they had simply made that one call first. The $10,000 threshold has not changed since 1970. What has changed is the sophistication of the systems watching the behavior around it. You are already inside that system. The only question is whether the story your deposits tell matches the story your paperwork can prove. If it does, the report is the end of it. If it does not, the report is just the beginning. Drop a comment and tell me, did you know about structuring before today? Has a teller ever asked you questions about a large deposit? Tell me what happened. I read every single one. And what comes up most in the comments is always what I cover next.